This is a scene from one of the most brutal shows I have ever seen, and easily the best show of 2023, Blue Eye Samurai.
Told you. Round eye. Like a dog.
Blue Eye Samurai on its surface is a story of revenge, as our main character Mizu hunts the 4 white men who are illegally living in Edo-era Japan, one of them being Mizu's father. Mizu, you see, has lived their entire life being treated as less than human, as a dog, as a demon in a human skin. As at this time in the 1600s, Japan has entered the Edo period, a period dominated by Japanese isolationism and a strict social hierarchy system. As such, Mizu wishes to take revenge on the man responsible for all of their suffering, the man who brought Mizu into this world. It's here where the true story of Blue Eye Samurai begins to unfold. As we dig deeper into the story, into Blue Eye Samurai, as we peel back the layers, we see that this show is not a story of revenge, but a story of outcasts. Outcasts who struggle to find their place in an unbending world. And it's goddamn beautiful. Not long ago, I released a video titled The Genius of Blue Eye Samurai, where I reviewed this show, season 1 of this show, and give an in-depth look onto its many themes, some of its characters, its animation. As well, I discuss my favorite episode, episode 5, the story of the Ronin and the Bride, in great detail. I highly recommend watching that video before this one. Oh yeah, and obviously, spoilers. As I said at the start of the video, Blue Eye Samurai depicts the brutality of Edo-era Japan in such a visceral and emotional way. Not only is the show extremely violent, but really the more unexpected brutality comes in really how the show lays bare Edo society and all of its flaws. The Edo era under the shogunate brought in a strict social order based on inherited positions rather than personal merits. Yay, nepotism! Society was roughly broken down into this pyramid. On top was the emperor, under him the court nobles, and below them the shogun. Reporting to the shogun directly were his legional lords, the daimyo, and under them their skilled warriors, the samurai, which made up around 5% of the population. Below them was the peasant class, which made up roughly 80% of the population. Below them, the craftsmen, the merchants, and below them, not even deeming a place on the pyramid, the women, who at this time were basically viewed as property. Most were relatively uneducated, except for more noble women, and all of these women would later be married off to a man of their father's choice, where they would spend the rest of their days as a housewife or mother. Some lucky few might find themselves working as an entertainer or dancer to nobles, but most of these women who were unable to find husbands were confined to a life of prostitution. As well, there was another class in the society that, like women, existed below the level of the social hierarchy, so low, in fact, that they aren't even recognized as people, the Henin. Henin, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, translates directly to non-human and was the name given to the lowest social classes. Oftentimes, this could be poor commoners who have committed a crime, the homeless, the physically and mentally disabled, and the non-Japanese. This is the setting, the world that our story takes place in, a world that our characters constantly find themselves at odds with, as this anime amazingly portrays and contrasts the beautiful landscapes of Japan and the architecture of Edo-era culture with this cold, dark, brutal reality of the social world that our characters live in. Our core group of characters consists of Mizu, the blue-eyed samurai, a woman who has been forced to live her entire life as a man to hide her identity from the people who hunt her. RIngo, Mizu's apprentice, a physically disabled and mentally divergent happy giant of a man and the best boy ever. Taigen, the disgraced samurai, a character who undergoes probably the biggest character growth in the entire show. And finally, Akemi, the strong-willed, unruly princess of Kyoto. All of these characters embodying this struggle against social hierarchy, the social norms of Edo Japan. In their own way, all of these characters are outcasts, as all of them struggle in their own way to find where they belong in this world, in this strict social order. We begin with one of my favorite characters, the best boy, RIngo. We first meet RIngo in our opening scenes, which are probably some of my favorite moments of animations throughout season 1, even though there's a lot, as we watch RIngo prepare soba noodles in his father's restaurant. RIngo is this goofy, gentle giant, and a character that serves to be the guiding light for our angry, revenge-driven main character, Mizu. RIngo was born without hands, causing many people to look down on him, as in our opening scene, we see RIngo being berated by his father, as well as an angry customer who RIngo accidentally spills soba over. The customer then draws a pistol, a weapon that is, at this time, illegal to own in Japan, but luckily he is saved by the unexpected Mizu. RIngo, like Mizu, is an outcast born without hands and depicted as mentally divergent. Multiple characters throughout our season refer to RIngo as a half-wit. RIngo, like Mizu, has been abused by all of those around him, treated as less than, as untouchable, as lower than human, as Hinin. However, though, this run-in with Mizu completely changes RIngo's life, as he begs her to become her apprentice. Of course, though, he thinks that she's a man at this point.
And I'll do anything you ask. Master, anything so I can learn to be just like you.
Like me?
You're deformed, but you're still strong.
I said this in our other video about Blue Eye Samurai, but this scene, I think, really kind of encompasses, like, this theme of the outcast in this show that permeates throughout all of this show. RIngo means no harm by calling Mizu deformed. We see that even his thinking is shaped by these norms of Edo society, which does make sense, as RIngo himself has been treated as an outcast by said society his entire life. Yet, unlike Mizu, he remains uncharacteristically positive. He has this almost childlike energy and hope. A stark contrast from Mizu, who's driven by anger and resentment, and through most of season 1, is an extremely cold character, though she does reluctantly allow RIngo to become her apprentice as long as he wears a small bell around his ankle, something that would become a symbol of their friendship. Personally, I would say that RIngo is probably one of the most important characters in this entire show, definitely in season 1 in terms of character progression, as it is through his influence and his positive view of the world that really serves as the glue for our would-be team of heroes. This is really most easily seen in his relationship with Mizu. As I said earlier, Mizu reluctantly allows RIngo to become her apprentice, and I really mean reluctantly, as she very much sees him as a hindrance to her goals, an opinion that will greatly change throughout our episodes. Mizu as a character is extremely cold and hateful. The show goes out of its way to show early on that this hate extends to basically all Japanese people. In this scene, we see Mizu arrive at the gates of Kyoto. In front of her is a mother and child wishing to enter the city to do business, but they are denied entry without the presence of a man. For a moment, it seems as though Mizu is going to assist them by posing as their chaperone. Remember, all of these people still believe that Mizu is a man. But then she turns, leaving the mother and child at the gate to suffer. Later on, when we see Mizu leave the city, we see this exact same mother and child huddled together in the exact same spot, covered in snow. This time, though, to our surprise, we see Mizu does show some compassion in her heart, as she leaves a golden hairpin behind for the mother and child. Throughout season 1, we see a lot of Mizu's actions, this drive for revenge, put her into conflict with RIngo's belief on how a samurai should act, should behave. RIngo believes in this idealized version of a samurai, a warrior who lives his entire life in service, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We see that despite how RIngo is treated in this world, he still aspires to greatness, to become great. There's this really amazing scene in episode 3 where RIngo explains this philosophy, his outlook on the world, to a disgruntled, dishonored Taigen.
But now, I've actually seen what greatness looks like. And I know I can't touch greatness any more than I can swallow the sun. But I can help. I can help greatness.
I'm great!
We finally see RIngo and Mizu's relationship really start to become strained at the end of my favorite episode, episode 5, The Ronin and the Bride. Go check out our Genius of Blue Eye Samurai video for a full breakdown of this episode and why it's so freaking great. At the end of episode 5, we see a wounded and tired Mizu make a decision, deciding whether to save the runaway princess Akemi from her father's men or to let them take her. Mizu ultimately decides to let the men take her, believing that the princess is better off in her father's castle rather than being involved in the horrors of the real world. RIngo, horrified by Mizu's decision, tells her that she's no samurai. Samurai are honorable, they help people. As he takes off his belt, a symbol of his devotion to her and their friendship, to which she storms off in anger, consumed by her rage in her quest for revenge.
It isn't until the climax of episode 6, as Mizu faces off against the main antagonist of our show, Abijah Fowler, that Mizu realizes the truth in RIngo's words.
In this episode, Mizu has fought bravely, ascending the death trap that is Fowler's castle, rescuing a half-dead Taigen who Fowler had imprisoned in his dungeon. Mizu looks on as Fowler savagely beats the corpse-like body of the samurai of Taigen, a man who as a boy had mercilessly tortured Mizu, then later on as a man had become her rival. Now though, he was just her friend. It's here we hear RIngo's words ring in Mizu's mind. I know what I'm supposed to do, to be a samurai, like you. A look of sadness comes over Mizu's face as we again hear the ringing of the bell, a reminder of her only friend and his belief in her. As in this moment, Mizu accepts the person she was called to be, a samurai, as she dives forward, saving Taigen, the two of them plummeting out the window to the icy waters below. Taigen, as well as a character, is surprisingly really deep, his character developing greatly, probably the most out of any of the characters from his time spent with RIngo and Mizu. Taigen is first introduced as this young, cocky samurai and an absolute bigot. The prodigy of his dojo, we are told that Taigen had won over 20 duels and as such managed to attract the attention of the local lord, who had arranged for his daughter, Princess Akemi, to marry him. Well, that was the plan until he makes the big mistake of challenging Mizu, who humiliates the samurai by removing his top knot, a symbol of status and their honor. Having been dishonored and suffering the embarrassment of losing to a wandering ronin in such a way, the lord called off the marriage of his daughter to Taigen. Taigen, wanting to regain his lost honor as well as his damaged pride and potentially reclaim Princess Akemi as his wife, makes it his mission to find the wandering ronin and challenge them to a duel, to kill them and to regain his honor. Throughout the first episodes of our show, Taigen comes off as an extremely unlikable character. Not only is he an egotistical, selfish asshole, we learn early on that he was one of the children that tormented Mizu in their local village. Like many of the other Japanese, Taigen views Mizu as a demon, a hennin, less than human. But over time, through fighting as battles with one another and against one another, and from his time spent talking to RIngo, we see Taigen develop a greater respect for Mizu that at times borderlines on attraction, and a very interesting commentary on sexuality, as throughout the entirety of the first season, Taigen never actually learns that Mizu is really a woman pretending to be a man. Even still though, there are many moments throughout season 1 where a Mizu-Taigen romance is teased. Like, there's this awesome parallel here of Mizu and Taigen fighting and tumbling, like, together in episode 3, and then again in episode 7, and oh my god, the sexual tension in the second go-around, I mean, goodness. Taigen, like the others, represents the outcasts of Edo culture in his own way, and the struggles of the common people in Edo society. In episode 7, Taigen and Mizu return to their childhood village, Taigen being haunted by the memories of his cruel treatment of Mizu, his mind and his view on the world having undergone quite the change. Taigen, we learn, is the son of a fisherman in a poor village. As a young boy, Taigen quickly realized that he possessed only two paths in his life, the net or the sword. His father lived and died by the net, by how many fish he caught. Catch enough and he could drink his fill. Not enough and he would beat Taigen instead. Taigen knew that he would either become his father or he could cut his way free. So he chose the sword.
I want to take a quick tangent and discuss our main antagonist, Abijah Fowler. Because holy shit, is this guy a bad, bad man. Throughout the majority of Season 1, Fowler is portrayed as a man of untold cruelty, a man who takes joy in causing pain to others. We learn that Fowler is confined to this remote castle, so the shogun can deny that he is in the country. As remember, it is illegal for white foreigners to be in Japan at this time. Once a year, the man is allowed to leave his castle for a spring pilgrimage. This year, though, things will be different, as Fowler and his allies and conspirators plan to overthrow the shogun. In many ways, Fowler is kind of this personification of evil, of greed, a man of untold cruelty, a man who has lined the underground tunnel of his castle with the bodies of his bastard children and their mothers, and a man who could be Mizu's father. It's interesting because throughout the series, Mizu is often referred to as a devil or a demon for her eyes, for her connection to these white foreigners. Fowler being this almost perfect representation of what they believe the evil foreigners are like, a demon. However, Fowler, like our other main characters, is an outcast. There's this really powerful scene towards the climax of Season 1 at the end of Episode 7, where Fowler tells us the story of his youth, the story of how he grew up under the oppression of the Tudors and the famines that ravaged the Irish countryside.
I was a boy when the Tudors burned any food the rebels under O'Neill might think to eat. We starved. Everyone starved. Mouths on the dead stand green from chewing nettles. You get resourceful in a famine. My parents died early, left me and my sister catching rats. The rats ran out quick, fed my sister on my blood, kept her alive an extra 2 weeks. I didn't sleep for 3 days to protect her body from the starving till the ground thawed. I cut out her kidneys and buried her. Fat cap on them like a pea. I haven't eaten a single meal since my mind didn't go to that bite. It was the last thing I ever did because I had to. I control my life now. Every bite.
Gotta give a big shout out to the story writers for this show. Fowler is such a good antagonist, such a good bad guy. For the majority of Season 1, he is depicted as this evil, cruel man with basically no redeeming qualities. But it isn't until here, towards the end of our season, that we finally see some humanity in the man. An explanation for his character, for his lack of morals and his love of violence. Fowler is, in his own way, a tragic outcast of a character. A person who, like Mizu, like RIngo, has undergone years and years of oppression, years of sadness that has shaped him into the person that he is today. In my opinion, this is how you make an amazing villain.
As I said earlier, Blue Eye Samurai constantly commentates on the social structures of Edo Japan and consistently focuses on the role of women in this society. One of the primary ways this is done is through the juxtaposition of our main character, Mizu, and the last primary side character, mentioned already, Princess Akemi. Princess Akemi, is a headstrong, independent young woman. Early on, we learn that she's the daughter of the Lord of Kyoto. Her father is in the process of finding Akemi a husband, something that she rightly believes she should be able to decide. Akemi's father, however, wants her to embody the social norms of the court women of this time. Basically, that women should be seen, not heard. But we see that Akemi is very much not going to take this lying down, and she is aided by one of her father's counselors, a father-like figure to her who wants what's best for her and wishes she could also live a life away from this cage that is royalty and is her duties. After Taigen is dishonored and sets out to find Mizu, Akemi decides she will flee the palace, fleeing in secret to try and find Taigen. This is really the main theme of Akemi's story, this comparison between the roles of men and women in Edo society, as well as what it means to be free in this world. The show portrays the reality of women in really two ways. One, as a mother, a housewife, a tool for marriage, a reality which very much holds true regardless of royalty or commoner. And second, a prostitute. This is the reality that Akemi, having left the palace for the first time in her life, now finds herself in, as she has disguised herself as a highly trained courtesan, using her charm and intellect to manipulate this very creepy courtesan purveyor to take her all across Japan in pursuit of Taigen. The journeys of Mizu and Akemi are very interesting comparisons on the role of men and women in this society. Akemi's role as a woman confines her to like a certain set of norms in this society. Regardless of her status as a princess or a courtesan, she is still prisoner to these norms of a woman in this time. At first, Akemi believes the only way she can find her freedom is by escaping the palace, only for her to discover that there was no freedom at all for her to be found. And ultimately, the only way she can express her freedom is to manipulate the system from the inside. We then compare this to Mizu, a woman who has lived her entire life basically as a man who has trained with the sword. Thus, she solves problems in this way, violently. Mizu, while being an outcast for her blue eyes, in many ways has a much more freedom than Akemi because of her ability to pass as a man and her skills with the blade. Mizu then exists between these two worlds, yet simultaneously though, she is beneath them at the same time, her eye color a reminder to the people as her status as a hinin. There's a lot of really interesting moments and character interactions between Akemi and Mizu throughout the seasons. Akemi making comments to Mizu that she wouldn't understand because she believes that Mizu is a man, when in reality, Mizu is a woman who has lived the life and the social norms of a woman, but refuses to be held down by these social norms. Her skill with the blade and in combat, like a sharp contrast to this like perceived idea of what women should be. Mizu is this like amazing personification of ambiguousness. She's Japanese until she's not. She passes as a man until she doesn't. She is also like the personification of trauma. Her life of abuse and betrayal turning her into this cold and callous being. An Onryo, a demon in human skin. But it's through her interactions with our many characters and other fellow outcasts that Mizu begins to warm to the world. This is really the true story, I think, of Blue Eye Samurai. Yes, it is a story of revenge, very much so. But when you peel back the layers and really look at it, it's a story of acceptance, a story of outcasts, those lost in a broken world, and how they try to find themselves and their greater purpose and their greater meaning. And it's just fucking amazing, man. Sometimes, like, I watch a show or a piece of media, and it, like, really genuinely shocks me on how good it is. This is what happened with Blue Eye Samurai. I watched this show on a whim after I had heard some people really bigging it up online, hyping it up. I knew nothing about it. I was completely blind going in, and as such, I was completely floored coming out. This show is like extremely powerful from top to bottom. Its animations are stunning and epic. Its fight scenes are brutal and violent, yet beautiful. The soundtrack is absolutely banging. This blend of traditional Japanese instruments and musics from the time period combined with like new age modern media. I mentioned this in the other Blue Eye Samurai video that I made, but there's this amazingly epic scene where the Japanese cover of Metallica's For Whom the Bell Toll comes on over a fight scene, and Jesus Christ, oh my god, it's so hype. I think really where and how the Blue Eye Samurai hits different is like the way that it pries at your emotions. I mean, the way they portray this bigotry towards Mizu, like right off the bat in the show, at times it's like really hard to watch, man. And that makes sense, seeing as the show's creator, Amber Noizumi, based this off of her own perspective as a mixed Japanese person. And I mean, god damn, dude, it just fucks you up in ways that you probably never would expect. I love Blue Eye Samurai. This show is, in my opinion, probably easily the best show of 2023. It's easily one of my favorite Netflix original animations, probably my favorite of all time. The show is extremely ambitious, like really, really ambitious. This easily could have been a flop if it wasn't executed so well. I said this in our other Blue Eye Samurai video as well, but like, this is how you build a female protagonist, really just a protagonist in general. This is also how you tell a story that has diverse and deep characters, by making them feel human in all of our messy flaws and rough edges. Blue Eye Samurai somehow doubles as this violent action story of revenge, while also being an in-depth cultural critique and examination on how we treat the outcasts of society, and it's fucking amazing.
As always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you would, please like, comment, and subscribe if you did enjoy the video, as this engagement really does help the channel out and put the video into the YouTube algorithm. Apologies on the lack of uploads over the last month. I've been really sick and just haven't been able to push as much content out as I would like. Expect a new video over the new Scott Pilgrim series on Netflix very soon. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope to see you in the next one. Drink your water, hug your mother. Until next time, peace, love, adu.